Race of the week. This week we go to Indiana for the Grade 2 Indiana Derby. 8.5 furlongs, a mile and a 16th. Let's take a look at some of the contenders and some of the factors coming into this race. Leading the way from the rail is Mr. Z. Mr. Z comes in after an impressive victory the last time in the Ohio Derby. That time he faced Tensendur and Divining Rod, who's in this race, and kind of won a three-horse photo. Showed speed from the outside, kind of settled in on the turn, and then lost the lead to Divining Rod halfway down the stretch, but gamely battled back and came back on for the victory, picking up the win at 7-1. This time he faces a similar group of horses, a couple of horses that he's already defeated and some new horses. Going to be approaching that millionaire status, $997,000 in earnings. Hits hard in this spot, but probably a little bit of an underlay coming off the win the last time. The 7-1 odds would have been the race to have him the last time. This time he's listed as a 2-1 favorite. Divining Rod, he was bet down to the favoritism in that last race. Made a couple of moves, may have moved too soon. He actually moved along the backside to kind of get close to the speed. Then Leperoux kind of laid back, made another move midway down the stretch, and Mr. Z just outgamed him. So didn't really lose the race. Gets a new jockey here. I think he's going to be tough in this spot, and is probably the most likely to win, but there are a few other contenders. Tiz Shady has been stepped up in class ever since his maiden win at Parks back in February. Still eligible for non-winners of 2, 1 win and 5 lifetime starts. Couldn't handle the Grade 1 competition in the Wood Memorial, ran evenly in the Peter Pan, and then lost to Tommy Macho in a highly rated speed race, but Tommy Macho came back to lose in another race, the Dwyer Stakes. So I think Tiz Shady is probably going to be a little overbet for this spot. Still really hasn't picked out his class level, and he's faced some smaller fields that may have been inflating some of his final finishes. Alabaster ran evenly in the Iowa Derby. Good form. He kind of just runs his race. He went from those mid-83 speed figures the last few races, jumped it up to a 96 last time. That may be a little overinflated as well, so I see him bouncing back more to that 86, 87 range, what kind of puts him in the spot here. He's got some good breeding, good connections, and capable of getting a win if a couple horses don't run their race, but again, not my top selection. Bold Conquest, some people may remember him facing American Pharoah a couple of times back at Oaklawn Park, then went to the Sir Barton Stakes at Pimlico and just ran into a monster that day in Fame and Power. Last race he ran against the speed bias, a very biased racetrack where speed and inside speed really held well on Matt Win night at June 13th at Churchill Downs. I'm going to give him another shot here. I think he tried to run closer to the pace that time and then just flattened out in the drive. I think this time he lays further back and makes one move, and if he puts it all together, he's capable of winning this race. He's better definitely than that last race shows. Islandtown, he was the beneficiary. He got an aggressive front-running ride, was able to slow down the fractions, got a little bit of a breather coming into the stretch, took advantage to Fame and Power breaking slow in that race, and then was just a better horse than Private Prospect. Private Prospect did come back to running the money in the Iowa Derby, but I think Islandtown is going to be overbet in this spot. I think he's a play against. I think Divining Rod, Mr. Z, and Bold Conquest are all better than Islandtown. Far Right, for whatever reason, just did not fire in the last race in the Ohio Derby, was bet down, really was not much longer odds than Mr. Z. I think he can improve here, gets Corey Lannery in the mount, and this is a jockey switch. Not that the last jockeys have been bad, just sometimes a horse gets a new rider and they may go back to his running race. His best races really are coming from out of it. Last time he was maybe ridden a little bit close to the pace, and I expect him to get further back and kind of make one sweeping run here to try to get in the top 4. Deliverance Day, riding back-to-back wins at Churchill Downs, has always hinted at some potential. Ran into a tough group of horses in Phenomenal Phoenix, and then really his only bad race was back on April 11th at Oaklawn Park, but then came back with 2 nice wins at Churchill Downs. Trainer knows where to spot him, and the distance should not be a problem. Good distance breeding on both sides, Seeking the Gold and Dynaformer, strong stamina influences, and he's one of the few horses with 3 lifetime wins. Going for the hat trick here, and we'll see if he can go for his 4th lifetime win and 3rd in a row. I think he can fit in this spot, but overall, I think he's a cut below some of the top horses. Most likely to win is Bold Conquest in this spot. I think Divining Rod is going to be very hard-hitting, and Mr. Z always runs his race, but And he's going to be in the fight. I'm just not sure he can win 2 in a row. So I think he's kind of a play against. Divining Rod and Bold Conquest are the 2 choices for me in the Grade 2 Indiana Derby. Remember, don't miss any of the preview videos. Hit the subscribe button and find out more information and complete write-ups at derbyologist.com. That's going to do it for another week as we handicap you to the Breeders' Cup.